Welcome to the Accepted Authority, where we talk about how to overcome a common growth challenge. And today we've got Greg Rowith as always. G'day, Greg.
G'day, Andy. Good to be here again.
Absolutely. Now, today we're going to talk about how do we charge what we're worth. And the reason why we're talking about this is I know that you've had some conversations, Greg, around this. I've been looking at sort of how to reframe what we do at Concurve, which has been a process as well. And I think that if you're watching or listening, in consulting, it's fairly common, in professional services, it's fairly common to go down a time and materials versus more appealing about what is valuable. So I think it's a great conversation. So why don't we kick it off, Greg? Like, how do you tackle that? You know, how do we charge what we're worth in a professional services environment?
Yeah, it's a really topical topic, if I can. Current conversation I'm having with clients at the moment around how do we charge what we're worth. They've often complained about having to put in proposals and worrying about their hourly rates and how much they can charge. And what I encourage them to do is to really try and break the mold and get away from hourly rate charging. And it's difficult to do in a scenario where that's the traditional approach. And a lot of consulting and professional services in general have that hourly based pricing, time and materials pricing model entrenched in the historical way they do things. But a lot of firms are breaking away from that. And what I encourage my clients to do is to think more about the value of the outcomes that they achieve for their clients. And rather than selling a service, sell a solution. And, that can be packaged up in a different way where it's not about the time that you spend on the project. It's really, helping a client in the sales process and in the marketing process understand the real value of the transformation that the consultant can achieve, and then packaging the service around that transformation and the outcome that can be achieved for a client, so that the client can see a real comparison between the outcome they'll achieve and the value of that, and then the price they'll have to pay. Again, a lot of proposals, based on an hourly rate are open-ended as well, which I think makes it hard for a client to make a decision, because if we're, say, charging, for providing services, and our fees are based on $500 an hour rate, how many hours is it going to take? So if we can package that, and over time we have a good feel for how long a project should take, and particularly if we're marketing in the right way and attracting clients that are of a similar ilk, where we're solving the same problem for them. We know within CUI that the program or project is going to take a certain amount of time, so we can be pretty confident about charging a fixed fee for that, even if that boils down at the end of the day to an hourly rate in terms of how we calculate our price. The client doesn't have to know what our hourly rate is, and we don't have to talk about in terms of how long it will take. It's really about the outcome we're going to achieve for the price we're going to charge.
It's so true, Greg. I remember when I retrained in copywriting after working as a freelance writer and things like that. I was really surprised that the way that they taught was based on hours. It was an hourly rate, as we're talking about here. And it never sat well with me. I always felt like, well, what if I'm a junior and it takes me 20 hours to do something? So what, you're going to charge, you just have to charge extra because I'm slow at what I do. And I guess the evolution that I've seen and where I'm at the moment with Concurve is in that same vein. Now it's based on a model. It's a signature system, if you like, where there's a transformation pathway, and being able to share, there's 9 different transformation milestones that we're going to take you through. I've definitely noticed that that's really been valuable, because we're not talking price just is over here. Price is subjective, value is subjective. But the transformation and the milestone where we're going to take you through is as you say, it's that outcome that's what people are going to hang their hat on. Are you going to be able to move me from where I am over here to where I am over here? Well, that's what I'm paying you to do. And whether it takes 2 weeks or 4 weeks or 6 weeks, as long as I get the outcome that I want, then I'm a happy camper. So
yeah. There's lots of analogies we can talk about, but in terms of the client's perspective, if you can achieve an outcome they want, what difference does the price matter whether you take 1 day to do it or 10 days to do it? If you're getting the outcome. Ideally, if the client was going to go through an operation and you talk about it, or it's going to take 10 days to get you this result, or we can do this other procedure which will get the same result but it's only going to take 1 day, which one would you choose? They want the 1 day, but we as consultants, if we're charging by the hour, we want the 10 days. So there's a mismatch in the client's desires and what we're trying to provide to them. So if we can take it away from that hourly rate basis and really package our programs around the outcomes and transformations that we can achieve and the value proposition around that, then it's a much more acceptable process for both client and consultant.
Yes, and it's a bit like the different forms of cricket. We're here in Australia, cricket-loving nation from a very general sense. But if some people want a result, they'll go see a 2020 game where it's over in 3 hours. However, if you're prepared to wait a bit longer, you might have a 1 day game where it might take 8 hours. And then if you're really happy and you don't mind waiting, there's a test match which might take 5 days and you still might not get a result. So, and I guess it appeals to different audiences. And I think what we're saying here is very true. If you're serving a client base as well that is looking for an outcome, and maybe it's a time sensitive, then perhaps you can see how you can condense your resources and time into a shorter time frame. But obviously you charge a premium for that. So I think that's so in terms of how you've built your business, because obviously as you in your journey you've seen different models, and now you have a model where it's a transformation pathway. Do you want to explain a little bit about how you came to do that and what are the transformations? And I guess if you're watching and listening, you can actually apply it to your own business, because I think it's all really relevant.
Yeah, I was actually having this conversation with a client or potential client yesterday, and talking about labeling what we do. And in my businesses in the past, I could have called myself a business coach, could have called myself a business consultant, could have called myself a CFO at some point. But none of those labels were really accurate, because I had decided I didn't want to be any of those. But because of my previous experience in business, I'd really developed my business model to be the solution for the problems I had when I was running my own business. And there were lots of clients like me who needed the same solutions. So, where business coaching was appropriate, I used the business coaching model. Where business consulting was appropriate, I used the consulting model. Where advice and support and number crunching was appropriate, I brought that into the mix. So what I did was not allow myself to be trapped in the mold of the traditional profession that a lot of us are trained in when we first start off. But I looked outside the square, if you like, and looked at, well, what do my clients really want from me, and how can I provide that solution for them? And revise the processes and pick the ways that I could help my clients best. And as you mentioned earlier, created a signature system or a transformation process that had a finite beginning and end, and a set number of steps that we took. So it wasn't based, or it was loosely based on and how long that typically would take. So I'm recovering my costs per hour and adding value beyond that. But it really came down to the price of the transformation that we took our clients through, and they were willing to pay that, and particularly knowing that there's a fixed cost up front for each part of that process. That they didn't have this open-ended contract that they wonder what it's going to cost them in the end.
Yeah, and I think that's really important. The fixed term approach, as opposed to just doing something that may take how long's a piece of string, a long time. But if you can say, look, it's almost like a sprint model where if I can get you this done in this period of time, then and I can prove results, then it's going to have more impact. Something that I'm working on at the moment is, we've got a 4-week program, and then we've got sort of monthly 3-month sprints almost, where it's a long-term view, but I'm here and I need to do a job within a set time frame, so it lessens the risk. So it's sort of risk avoidance. It's high, it's high value. It's high value, and we're all. It's very clear about what the outcome is. So how do you? So if I'm an HR consultancy, for example, or a technology consultancy, how do I incorporate that kind of model, that kind of thinking into my business, which can be very, here's product A, product B. Product
C. Great question, because there are a lot of professions that are very commoditized. Every consultant in HR, basically provides the same service, or it doesn't matter what profession it is. The traditional approach really has commoditized that profession down to a certain expectations from clients about what the consultants will do. So it's, again, I think the first thing is not to try to be all things to all people. Excuse me. We don't have to provide all of the typical services that the typical HR consultant will provide, for example, but we can specialize, and we can focus on a particular niche market where our clients have a specific set of problems that a lot of other clients outside of that specific niche don't really have, or have at a different level. So we can become specialists in solving that specific set of problems for a specific set of clients and package our solution around that. And, we might be doing the same things in the same way that our competitors in a broader space do, but the way we package that up and focus on the specific solution that our clients are looking for really makes a difference. And we can really highlight those differences in our marketing and sales approach to add value and show the value that we're offering to those clients, and make sure that they see the difference.
That's why it's so important to get those foundations right. As you say, Greg, you pick a niche, you pick a target market, you get super clear and dialed in on top 3 to 5 problems. You test that out in the market, you get feedback. Some things will stick, some things won't. But once you have an overall idea, then you can speak about what they are. And that also boils down to, I've noticed when someone says to me in a sales conversation, "Oh, can you just send me something, or like, just what do you do? Just give me an idea." And of course, what I'm doing now, I basically say, look, we help consulting firms, and we solve these 3 problems, and I tell them the problems. Then I tell them, well, instead we're going to focus on X, Y, and Z. And I think that sometimes that's all you need. You need to have a bit of a high level view of what the main problems are. People can dig deeper.
Yeah.
So for example, we're working with a client now. It's an innovation sort of design consultancy. And traditionally they work with startups, and now they want to really focus the energies on a particular area, so sort of public sector. And so what we're doing at the moment is really getting super clear on this public sector persona, if you like. What are their top 3 priorities and problems and challenges, where they want to be? And then that's going to become the basis for our, outbound and our content sort of plan. How do we keep that cadence going? But how do we continually talk about the things that we believe matter to them after all the research? So, but that's very different from if you have, say, a C-level in a large organization. Completely different set of challenges and competing ideas and priorities. So again, it's I think the message here is that it's when you're looking to charge what you're worth, it's really more about, it's really tailored towards the audience. If you can convey the value about solving their problems, then that's when you're going to get that. You're going to be able to charge more, and it's going to be super easy as well, because you know that you're just appealing to their problems sort of day to day.
Yeah, no, that's right. And I think, the way consultants try to present themselves in the market, traditionally we've used tools like capability statements. Our website is a mini capability statement in a way. But I love what David Maister says about that style of marketing. He asked the audience, like, who's ever made a decision to take anyone on based on their capability statement or their brochure? Maybe one hand went up out of 150 people in the audience, and typically that's a truism that people don't buy consulting services based on capability statements or any marketing. It's based on the relationship, who you are, what you do, how can you solve my problem, and what's the approach. So when we focus on who we are and what we do and try to present that to the market and sell our services, that's when we become commoditized, and we're just seen as one of those people who can give us a proposal. So really it's about changing the dynamics, as I said earlier, picking the niche market, understanding what their biggest problems are, and focusing our marketing around that, so that the clients know or don't care so much about what we know, but they sure know how much we care.
I love that. Yeah, it's definitely not about all the expertise and all the awards. It's simply about, I'll take you from here to here, which is really valuable when we're looking to increase our prices. So thanks, Greg. It's been a really fantastic discussion. I hope you enjoyed listening or watching. So where can we find you, Greg?
Best places to find me on LinkedIn. Do a search for Greg Roworth and they'll come up pretty quickly, or check me out on my website at businessflightpath.com.
Fantastic. You can find me at Andy Marmont on LinkedIn or concurve.com.au. This has been The Accepted Authority. Thanks again for listening or watching, and we'll see you next time.
Bye.